Welcome on the 7:30 on Label Television. Today, Monday, December 4th, 2017 in Libreville. Here are the titles.
Jointly organized by the African Development Bank, AFDB, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, in short ECA, and the United Nations Development Programme, in short UNDP, the work of the African Economic Conference, AEC, 2017 opened today, Monday, December 4th, in Addis Ababa with the participation of representatives of several African countries. In the silent
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the headlines, but ladies and gentlemen, good evening. According to Joseph Beti Asomo, the Minister of Defense of Cameroon, the Cameroonian army will implement without calm the instruction of President Paul Biya to put out of sight or harm violent English-speaking separatists. Get the story.
When the head of state makes a political decision like this to eradicate the separatist fighters, we will implement it without any qualms, said Beti Asomo in a statement on the state radio. The Minister of Defense promised, without specifying the nature of these measures, that will be implemented immediately and whose process will continue until this uncomfortable situation the country is experiencing is eradicated. Remember, on Thursday, President Paul Biya said, we quote, "Cameroon is the victim of repeated attacks by a band of terrorists claiming a secessionist movement," reacting to the assassination between Tuesday and Thursday in the southwest of 4 English military and 2 policemen. The government attributes the responsibility to the English-speaking separatists. Mr. Biya assured that all steps are taken to disable these criminals. In other words, the president has declared wars on the criminals. According to the radio, at the request of the president, his defense minister on Friday gathered several senior military and military officials to assess the security situation in the country and analyze the deterioration of the level of security in the English-speaking regions. The military actions advocated during this meeting are intended to reassure the healthy part of the population that is caught in a vice, said Beti Asomo, promising the integrity of the territory will be assured. Since November 2016, the English-speaking minority in Cameroon, about 20% of the 23 million inhabitants, is protesting against its marginalization, some demanding federalism, others secession. The Yaoundé regime rejects both options. As the Cameroonian authorities have increased security pressure and the crackdown on separatist demonstrations, the ranks of secessionists have grown in recent months as incidents have increased, causing observers and analysts to fear an armed insurrection in the English-speaking west of the country bordering Nigeria.
It turns out one of the prerequisites for the successful transformation of African economy is good political, economic, environmental governance. In other words, governance underpinned by democratic, responsive, transparent, and accountable governance system, insists the various speakers at the opening of the African Economic Conference held in Addis Ababa 2017 this Monday. Watch the elements. The 12th edition of the conference series will offer a unique opportunity for researchers, policymakers, and development practitioners from Africa and around the world to reflect on the progress made by African countries in structurally transforming their economies. In line with the chosen theme, participants will discuss government policies, institutions, and mechanisms that can help unlock the transformative potential of African economies and therefore contribute to building resilient society in the continent. IAC will, among other things, foster dialogue that promotes the exchange of ideas and innovative thinking among researchers, development practitioners, and African policymakers. But according to Vera Songwe, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, good governance inevitably involves sound macroeconomic policies, the provision of adequate institutional and human capacity to design and implement development programs, but also sufficient investment in economic and social infrastructure and enabling environment for competitive manufacturing, agribusiness, and other service sectors. It is also important to notice that average growth in Africa remained moderate in 2016 with 3.7% and expected to reach 4.5% in 2017, as she added. Nevertheless, the objective of the 2017 African Economic Conference will be to identify policies and governance strategies that are more conducive to successful structural transformation based on existing best practices and emerging African perspective. Jointly organized by the African Development Bank, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and the United Nations Development Programme, the AEC provide a unique forum for the exchange of ideas among economists and policymakers. We stay on economy in the continent, where the African Development Bank, in short AFDB, has just granted a 150 million euro loan for the construction of the Nachtigal hydroelectric dam. This dam is jointly developed by the Cameroonian state, EDF, and IFC, a subsidiary of the World Bank. Summary by Evan Bala.
The Board of Directors of the African Development Bank approved on November 29 a loan of 150 million euros to finance the construction of the hydroelectric dam Nachtigal with a production capacity of 420 megawatts. Located 65 kilometers north of Yaoundé on the Sanaga River, this plant will increase the capacity of electricity production in Cameroon by 30%. With a construction cost estimated at 1.05 billion euros, the company Nachtigal Hydropower Company, in short NHPC, grouping the state of Cameroon at 40%, the Electricity Group of France at 40%, and the International Finance Corporation, in short IFC, a subsidiary of the World Bank, at 30%, develops the dam. Rio Tinto, which was present through its Cameroonian subsidiary Alucam, withdrew in 2016. Construction will begin in 2018 for commissioning in 2022. In 2015, Cameroon's electricity generation capacity was estimated at 1,289 megawatts, of which 59% was hydroelectric power. The two large dams in the country are also located on the Sanaga River, with Songlulu 384 megawatts and Edea 267 megawatts. Remaining capacity consists of electric generation with heavy fuel and diesel, as well as a natural gas power plant. Also important to note, about 48% of the Cameroonian population has access to electricity, and 74% of Cameroonians live in localities connected to the electricity grid. According to the World Bank, Cameroon has the third largest hydropower potential in sub-Saharan Africa, estimated at more than 12,000 megawatts. Half of this potential is located on the Sanaga River basin. Recurring cuts affect Cameroon. They are in part the result of rapid growth in demand, but also a concomitant decline in production during low water when river flow is at the lowest from February to April for the Sanaga. Other causes regularly advance, vandalism on part of the network, and recurring problems of governance in the electricity sector.
Central African countries has decided to raise their economy, but now in Central Africa, where according to Central African authorities, the African Import-Export Bank, Afreximbank, will release 71 billion CFA francs to finance 5 development projects. These 5 projects concern the creation of a Catholic Agriculture University in Bangui, the rehabilitation of the hotel center, the construction of a lodge, tourist residence, and financing a mining cooperative and takeover of CSAD company. We listen. The announcement of the financing all these 5 projects occurs during a meeting last week between Afreximbank President Benedict Oke Orama and President Faustin Archange Touadéra and Prime Minister Simplice Mathieu Sarangi. But before these announcements, on Wednesday 29th November 2017, the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, announced that the Central African Republic has joined the membership of the bank. This makes the CAR the 49th African country to become a participating state or a shareholder in the Continental Multilateral Trade Finance Institution. The country presented an instrument of accession to the bank in Bangui. As Dr. Oram said, the presentation of this instrument took place during a visit to President Faustin Archange Touadéra of Central African Republic by an Afreximbank delegation led by Bank President Dr. Benedict Orama, and follows the submission by Eritrea of its own instrument of accession on 12 November and the acquisition of shares by South Africa a few days earlier. We are pleased to welcome the Central African Republic, and we are evaluating an initial list of 5 priority projects and transactions in the sector of agro-processing, mining and tourism, as well as trade-enabling infrastructure involving local private and public entities, and amounting a total of 71 billion CFA for potential financing by Afreximbank. Responding, President Touadera commended Afreximbank's commitment to driving the transformation of trade in Africa, expressed confidence that the Central African Republic's member would enable the bank to support the financing of the country's national economic development plan. It is also important to mention that membership of the bank gives Central African Republic access to full range of products and facilities offered by Afreximbank, including trade and project finance facilities, guarantees, trade information and advisory services, support in the development of local content policies, and assistance in developing and implementing industrial parks and special economic zones. It is in few days during the Abuja meeting in Nigeria on December 16, 2017 of the Conference of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, in short ECOWAS, that the accession of Morocco to the sub-regional organization should be confirmed, thus giving effect to the decision of principle taken in Monrovia and Liberia last June. This entry of the Sharifian Kingdom into this economic community requires to be analyzed in the light of challenges of the region. Morocco entries into ECOWAS will therefore create both challenges and opportunities for the current member states of the organization. They will have also to anticipate this change and maximize the gains they can make while managing as much as possible the challenges it poses. Africa has the potential to help feed the world population, provide the leadership implements to the right policy. Giovanni Tamba tells us more.
Experts think the continent should stop spending so much money on food importation. There is over $35 billion annual spending on food importation, which is expected to reach $110 billion by the year 2030. It will keep countries on the continent trapped in poverty as long as they remain consumers instead of being producers. 1 month ago, the president of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, took a series of bets on Africa's ability to feed itself, lift millions of its people out of poverty, and help feed the world. Indeed, the huge potential of the continent include fertile soils and up to 360 million hectares of uncultivated arable land. In addition to its status as the largest producer of a number of food and cash crops, Africa is in the strong position to feed the world, even if there is still much to be done. Nevertheless, the continent has made lots of progress over the years, leading to a reduction of chronic undernutrition from 25% to 13% as part of the global nutrition targets for the year 2025, set by the World Health Assembly in 2012. The United States Agency for International Development objective is to adapt to the global goal of reducing stagnation by 40%. It is reported that between the year 2009 and 2016, in U.S. heads 19 nutrition priority countries, which include 12 African nations, decreased from 40% to 34%. Nevertheless, Africa remains the only region where the percentage of population that is food insecure is increasing. In addition to discuss measures that have worked in other parts of the world for the purpose of replicating them in Africa for food security. The reason to this hopeful challenge lies on the great example like Brazil, which has shown us what is possible. Brazil is a great example of emerging country. It is also the largest country in South America and the 5th largest in the world, with over 80 million hectares of arable land.
Gambia has launched their first private television 52 years after their independence. More information reported by Georgina Mpiga.
Have interest in your state broadcaster. Do everything possible to motivate the people working here. If you want people to remain here, now that we are getting competitors, make sure that we develop interest in our state media.
On Thursday, November 30th, 2017, Gambia launched their very first private television operator 52 years after their independence. This was done by the Gambian President Adama Barrow and his Sierra Leone counterpart Ernest Bakoroma. This private television operator will emerge the state broadcaster, Gambia Radio and Television Services in short, GRTC, as the only channels. It is believed that this facility will provide hundreds of job opportunities for the Gambians. President Barrow continues to tell us at this occasion that the government is on a long road to development, which needs all hands on deck.
Word in culture now in Mali, where the Malian Minister of Culture, Ndiaye Ramatoulaye Diallo, kicked off the event on December 2nd at the National Museum of Mali, an exhibition who will last until January 2018 on the theme Afrotopia. Georgian Piga on these elements.
Ever since 1994, the Malian capital hosts Les Rencontres de Bamako, African Bilingue of Photography, every 2 years. The Minister of Culture declared that this event of looks and visions on Saturday, December 2nd, 2017, in the garden of the National Museum of Mali, that it shall be open until the end of January 2018. In a country that's been weakened by its violent past, this artistic event is a source of light to free themselves from dogma. It's also an act of resistance, and it's a refusal of obscurism. The French Institute and Jeune Afrique partook in the organization of this event. The Delegate General CDB led this 11th edition and was entrusted by the German Cameroonian Marie-Anne Yemsi, which appealed to several guest creators in a collaborative, dynamic, and with a participative spirit.
Breaking news now. Today, it happened in Cameroon football team. On Monday, December 4th, Hugo Broos is no longer the coach of the Lions Indomptables. The contract of the Belgian technician who gave the African Football Cup to the nation in 2017 has expired today. At the end of the Cameroonian selection since Friday, February 2016, he will no longer get the term of his second-year contract. More about this news on our next edition. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for choosing Label Television to inform you. Please stay tuned for the upcoming news in French. We will see you tomorrow, same hours, same channel. Good night.